Hello everyone, Squintina here, and today we will be talking about my ninja setup for Endwalker. I really like ninja, but gosh darn, I always have to make exceptions to some of my patterns for it. On the right side of the primary, we have our basic combo, though it goes through the square button because the circle button has ninjutsu. It might be labeled as an ability, but it triggers the global cooldown. On the D-pad, we have our stun, same location as the other melees and tanks, Dream Within a Dream, Bhavacakra, and Kassatsu. On the left side of the primary, we have our other combo finisher. Our melees have flank on the right and rear on the left. For the rest of the action buttons and my D-pads, I have to break some of my rules. Normally I prefer for GCDs, so weapon skills and spells, to be on the action buttons, and I try to keep OGCDs, so the majority of abilities, on the D-pad. However, you will notice the left side of the primary has 2 weapon skills on the D-pad and 3 abilities on the action buttons. This is because the mudras have to be done so quickly that it would be really inconvenient to do them on the D-pad. This leaves no space for anything beyond Aeolian Edge. Then on the D-pad, we have Hide and Mug, but we also have those 2 weapon skills. I won't talk about them much right now because I kinda need to show the whole setup first to explain why they're there. So let's talk about the expanded really quickly. That's left and right together, and it is meant for AoEs. You will notice ninjutsu is in the same location, so the combo goes from top directly to bottom. Throwing Dagger has the location for what I call mobility action, typically on the square button of either the primary or expanded, depending on what's available after placing more important actions. Hellfrog Medium is the AoE version of Bhavacakra, so it has the same location, and Kassatsu is in its same location so we can see its cooldown. Mug and Dream Within a Dream are also in the same locations as the primary. They're not the AoE, but hey, it still allows the enemies to die faster. Then we have a double cross hotbar, which is accessible by double tapping. Arm's Length and Fate are in the same locations as all other melee jobs. Trick Attack is effectively a party buff, so it goes onto the location I normally reserve for those. Mace goes into the spot I normally reserve for granting gauge resources. Then in our jump ahead location, I put Shikuchi, though it's not the only jump they have. The other jump, Forked Raiju, goes right next to it. That leaves 2 spots for some self-buffs in the form of Tenshijin and Bunshin. On the left side of the double cross hotbar, we have our supporting role actions, same locations as the other melee, and another supporting action specific to ninja via sheet shift. I also have one of the mudras placed, which means now I can finally discuss some of the peculiarities of the setup. The mudra on top is there so you can see how many mudras you have available when you are using AoEs, which would place you on the expanded. Since there are no mudras on the expanded, you have to be able to see the cooldown to know when to go into the primary. However, you would ideally finish the mudra by using the ninjutsu on the appropriate hotbar, so if you're doing single target, you would use the one on the primary, and if you're using AoE, the one on the expanded. This makes it a bit easier brain-wise to prep yourself for your next action. I already went into why I have the mudras themselves on the action buttons, which was because of the speed needed to perform them, which forced Huraijin and Fleeting Raiju to be on the D-pad. Huraijin isn't used frequently, at least that's what the guide in the balance said, so being on the D-pad is not too big of a deal. Then for the 2 special Raijus, personally I prefer Forked Raiju. They have the same potency and you can weave, even double weave regardless. At the very least I've been able to. So it's really up to personal preference. So I'd rather just always be at the boss, though if you need to stay in max melee for a mechanic, then Fleeting Raiju is better. So personally, I would use Forked unless I need to ensure I'm not moving, which means it doesn't really matter at that point if I'm using my D-pad and potentially taking my finger off the analog stick. So this just makes more sense to me. However, if you don't like it, you can just swap the 2 Raijus. We also have our limit break and our consumables. The super potion is a placeholder for where I normally would put a tincture. Sprint is on a macro on the right click hit button. I have it dragged to a regular hotbar for visibility, which you can do either via mouse or by using the virtual mouse or touchpad. Okay, the explanation is done. Here is how to set this up. Character configuration, hotbar settings, cross, then custom, settings for the expanded, I use set 2, settings for the double tap, I use set 3, System configuration, gamepad settings, button configuration, macro number 99. So we go into our user macros, individual, last one is 99 for the sprint macro. And just to show the setup again, primary on the right, primary on the left, double cross hotbar on the right, double cross hotbar on the left, expanded. If you are using the same settings that I am, you can utilize the macros in the description to set this up automatically. I also like for my gauge to be in the center. Anyway, that is my setup. As always, feel free to change anything as needed. I am not you, and it's okay to just use this as inspiration. Before I sign off, do hit that like button, and I do enjoy reading your comments, so let me know your thoughts. I will see you all for the next one. Bye bye.